Thank you.
Okay, so thank you again for the invitation. And really, I was asked to share some of our real world experience and applications for AI for breast cancer detection, diagnosis, and treatment, but also the vision, right? Where we're heading and where we see the field moving towards in the not so distant future. So let me start just sharing some of the projections, some of the present situation and the projections for the short term. Some of you may know that within healthcare and within radiology, breast imaging is already today one of the absolute top areas where AI is being routinely applied. And there's many reasons why this is the case. First of all, breast cancer itself is the most common form of cancer worldwide. In fact, it surpassed in 2020 lung cancer for the first time. 1 out of 8 women will get breast cancer throughout their lifetime. So we all know either women who already had it or have it, or women who will unfortunately get it. It's very common, right? The workload is very high because of screening, especially in the US and Europe. There's a lot of screening to try to catch this really early because then the prognosis is very good. There's still a lot of errors. Relatively speaking, roughly 20% of the cancers are still missed. And there's still too many false positives today. So many of the people in our family have been recalled for an extra exam, sometimes even for biopsies that turn out to be negative. Most of them are negative, right? So there's a lot of problems to be solved for a very pervasive form of cancer. And this really translates into what you can see at the bottom. Breast cancer today is very actively being pursued with AI, especially in the US. More than 90%, yes, 90% of our customers who are buying mammography machines in the US are also buying an AI today. So this is not just future, this is present today. Now, there is also a legacy because of all the issues that I mentioned above. There were other forms of old AI, non-deep learning based that were applied in the last couple decades in the field, which were not really that successful, right? So the legacy wasn't that great. The need was very high, but the solutions were still not good enough. So in the last few years, we've been encountering some skepticism because of this. People that were used to old non-deep learning AI to help the detection of breast cancer, but it wasn't working well. It was really like having a not very smart radiologist trying to help our customers, our radiologists. Today with deep learning, it's a complete change of the game. Now it is like having a very smart radiologist helping our customers. This is also making it to the news. So more and more we see patients and women asking if our doctors, if our radiologists are using already AI to increase the accuracy of the procedures. And we see a growing trend where these may become more and more requested by patients themselves. But where really are we? What is the reality today? And where are we heading with regards to AI in breast cancer? So first of all, let me just emphasize once again that pretty much everything that I will show in the next slides is deep learning based now, right? We're not really spending a lot of time with non-deep learning technologies anymore. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part, it is deep learning based. I want to show in this slide a couple of existing solutions, which are really correlating to that 90% of the users that I alluded before in the US. And outside the US, it's not 90%, but it's growing very, very fast, right, in adoption. So this first solution that I'm showing here, this is from our primary partner in the space called iCAD. And what you see here in the center is a mammography image. Here you see the breast. And this is an AI deep learning base, which is detecting and classifying suspicious lesions. So it will show the markers where there may be a suspicious area within this very large image, because in mammography, we work with very large images. It's really like looking for a needle in a haystack, right? So this helps to locate and classify those areas. When the radiologist clicks on the area, It will show a more detailed view going to the right plane within the 3D image, because very often we now work in 3D. It will show the contour, and it will also show a percentage certainty, which gives the radiologist an indication of how likely a given lesion or area is to be malignant, to be cancer. On top of that, there is the case score, which you can see here on the left, so that when they're going to read in a batch mode multiple patients in a row, they can read in whatever order they want. Many times they want to start with the more suspicious cases, and they can use that also to prioritize the reading phase itself. Now, what is the impact? You can see down here, this is from an FDA study, right? The FDA reader study, showing that the reading time went down by about 52% for the specific solution. Again, existing solution. This is not just research. This is commercially available today. And sensitivity and specificity went up by 8 points in the case of sensitivity. Specificity went up by 7 points. And this is comparing radiologists reading alone versus the same radiologist reading with the help of AI, concurrent reading. Now, we also have existing solutions in the ultrasound space. You can appreciate here the example of this Kio solution, which is integrated into our ultrasound system. So this is no longer mammography. This is with an ultrasound examination. It is also doing detection, classification, providing a likelihood of being malignant. And once again, it's been proven to show, to increase the sensitivity, the specificity, as well as a reduction in unnecessary biopsies, which is a big deal, right? No one wants to get an unnecessary biopsy because that's a more invasive procedure. So this is some examples of existing solutions that are very widely being adopted today. Now, how good is it, right? Because there's some noise and some hype, and some of the media has been actually generating some controversial statements saying that AI is already better than radiologists. So where are we really? I like this specific study because this shows a comparison of an AI standalone versus radiologists, 95 radiologists. And this concrete study, it showed that AI was better than 55 of the radiologists as it relates to sensitivity, right? Assuming a same or similar specificity. But you can still see here on the right side that there were still 36 radiologists. So the best radiologists or the better radiologists are still today better than the best AIs. Over time, we expect these to get better and better on the technology side, but we do not expect radiologists to be replaced by AI, because really the best result is when combining the two. Because even if AI may eventually become better than most radiologists, you will still get the best possible clinical performance if you combine both of these into this concurrent reading approach. So really the goal is to augment radiologists, help to maximize accuracy as well as the productivity. Now, I wanted to show this as well. This is from this FDA reader study to show once again what the impact is in the case of Profound AI. On the left side, you can see the radiologist. Each bubble is a radiologist. And the closer they are to the upper left corner, the closer they are to the perfect radiologist with 100% sensitivity and 100% specificity, right? The bigger the size of the bubble in this chart, the longer it took them to read the examinations on average. So you can see a very wide spread, right? Some radiologists were very high performing, others were much lower performance in accuracy. When they use Profound AI, which is this deep learning based existing solution, you can see the variation is drastically reduced. The overall performance moves much closer to the upper left quadrant. And also the reading time is reduced. So the size of the circles gets much smaller. So the impact is very obvious, very clear. And this is why we see such a high adoption of AI clinically today, mostly in the US, but also in other parts of the world. So that's where we are, but where are we heading? So I wanted to show these overview because, as in many other parts of healthcare, the diagnosis is just one part of the process, right? And if we look at the continuum for breast cancer, we really go from the risk prediction on the left to the detection and the diagnosis in the center, and then the treatment on the right side. And we see the trends going well beyond just reading and decision support. So most of what I showed right now corresponds to this fourth area that you can see here, reading and decision support, but we do see a lot of momentum and development and research going on in these other areas. So I want to give a little bit of a glimpse of this vision. So first of all, for risk prediction, we can appreciate here that there is already existing solutions that are helping to classify the breast density. So this is not groundbreaking, this is existing, and it is helpful. But really the big opportunity is the bottom part of the slide, where we will soon have models. When I say we, this is not a commercial presentation. I'm not just necessarily talking about General Electric, but we in the industry will soon have models that will be able to take multiple image types on the left as the inputs to the models, mammography, ultrasound, MRI, etc., as well as clinical data, family history, genomics, and translate this into a much more quantitative and precise risk prediction. Why is this important? Because this will translate into fully personalized screening pathways, meaning not every woman needs to be screened every year or every 2 years, right? Some actually need more frequent screening because of a high risk. Others can be every 3 years or even longer. So this is one very important outcome of this quantified risk prediction. And even the modalities that should be used for screening. For many women, mammography alone is perfectly fine, perfectly sufficient. For many other women, depending on each case, they may require MRI or maybe a combination of mammography and ultrasound. So how to translate the risk level into a fully personalized screening plan is one of the big opportunities that we see in the very near term. And there's quite a bit of work going on and being published in this space. The second application is very different. This is a very different type of AI model, working real time during the acquisition of the images to optimize the positioning. There is a surprisingly high number of cases where the breast positioning is poor. And that means that the sensitivity goes down from about 84% to 66%. In other words, there's a lot more missed cancer because the positioning of the breast in the mammogram is poor. So there's quite a bit of work going on in this space as well, where an AI would be assessing the positioning in real time and alerting the technologists so that they can correct before the patient or the woman leaves, therefore maximizing the exam quality and the sensitivity to breast cancer. Other area of major applications for the industry, and this is not specific to breast cancer. We're doing also quite a bit in CT and MRI and ultrasound, more broadly speaking, but certainly breast imaging will benefit from this very soon. This is deep learning-based image reconstruction, deep learning-based image processing. I won't go into all the details here, but long story short, this will provide better resolution, better signal-to-noise ratio, less artifacts, and quicker processing as well. The fourth area is the one that I started with earlier on, the decision support, clinical decision support for reading. So taking the images and helping radiologists during the interpretation, detection, classification, prioritization, and triage. These can be applied as we did today for individual modalities. And in the near future, will also be applied across modalities so that the same model can take multiple modalities as inputs and therefore provide a better classification and detection sensitivity for breast cancer. Fifth area is a lot less glamorous than some of the previous ones, but very practical. This is pre-population of reports. Radiologists still spend a lot of time capturing their thoughts into the reports. The less time they spend in front of the screen, the more time they can spend with patients and with oncologists and with other specialists. So this is a very practical application that we expect will become very pervasive soon. And then the sixth area is very different from the previous one. Everything I described before is in terms of risk prediction, detection and diagnosis. But once a patient is diagnosed with cancer, now we need to figure out ways to help the radiologists, the oncologists, and the clinicians to find the best possible treatment. So we think this is going to take a little bit longer than some of the other areas, but there's quite a bit of work going on already on these multifactorial treatment decision support, where multiple data types on the left will be inputs, including image types, textual data, radiology reports, pathology reports, clinical reports, and very importantly as well, sequencing data, and combining all of these to be able to better predict the response rate, the likelihood that a specific treatment or combination of treatments will work well for each case. So the outcome on the right will be increasingly personalized treatment plans. And this is where a lot of the imaging and genetics comes together with the pharmaceutical and the therapeutic side of the equation, right? Everything coming together to optimize um, clinical outcomes, productivity, as well as cost, right? This is very costly. So if you can get the best possible clinical outcome in a cost-effective way, it's a win-win for everyone. And last but not least, because I said there's 7 main areas we see as opportunities, this is very different from all the other ones. All the previous ones were clinically focused mostly, and this one is much more operational. We as a company, we develop and we sell equipment primarily, right? How to get the most out of the equipment, how to get the highest possible throughput, and the best utilization of the technology is another big deal. So on an operational side, we in the industry is working in taking the machine utilization data and learning to interpret these in smarter ways to recommend changes in the way the patients are scheduled, the way the machines are used, which technologies need more training on how to operate the machines, and many other operational factors. So this is a summary, again, an overview of how we see the vision moving forward. In terms of the ways to make this happen, we as a company, G Healthcare, many of you may have heard about the Edison Platform. The Edison Platform is something that we're developing internally and we're using to develop the actual solutions in the areas that I mentioned before. It's a platform that can work on the data collection, data processing, data curation, everything related to the data, then the developer services to actually train and develop models and test them and validate them. And last but not least, the integration into smart devices, right? Which is a very, very important part of the solution. You can have the best possible algorithm in the world, but if it is not integrated into the actual routine workflow of the doctors or the technicians using the machines, then the adoption is going to be much lower. We see this time after time. So our approach is to use this Edison platform and to combine some of these development being in-house and also some co-development with some key partners that we have in the industry as well as in the academic space. We have some very strong partnerships with some large top institutions worldwide. And also to select some of the best third-party AI applications out there. There's no need for us to develop everything ourselves. If there's some great solutions in some of these areas that already exist, we'd rather partner and be able to offer customers the best combination of what's existing out there and what we can develop. This is our vision, our way forward. In terms of the challenges ahead of us, I don't think it's going to be too different from some of the other presentations that may have been shown before. Access to data, the volume, but more importantly now, the quality of the data, the variety, the curation, the annotations. Of course, privacy remains a big concern and big area of focus. In data science, we actually have less issues today than in some of the other areas that we see here. I would say the two biggest areas are data and integration. Data for obvious reasons, right? Integration because of what I said before. We don't sell just algorithms. We sell fully integrated solutions that are used in a clinical workflow, and we want our customers to be able to fully leverage these in their clinical routines. So the integration is going to be extremely important because more and more will have the number of applications explode. AI will be applied all across the pathway as I showed before, and therefore the integration is critical. Guidelines, reimbursement, training, very important as well. And legacy is becoming less of an issue. It was more of an issue a few years ago because some of the customers that used previous generations were burned because of poor performance in the past before deep learning. Today, even the skeptics, when they see the performance, they're blown away. And this is really fading away as a challenge, at least for us. In terms of new upcoming trends, again, you can see some of these here. The use cases is exploding. We see these going all across the pathway. The way we do data augmentation, like many of you, I'm sure, is also evolving very quickly. Multimodality, we're going from siloed models, which just look at mammography or just ultrasound. In the near future, we'll have multimodality models, multifactorial going beyond imaging, because we as a company have been traditionally very focused on the imaging space, with more and more complementing that with clinical data, genetics, pathology, simplification, right? This is very important for us. Equity, huge topic, right? And there is some legacy as well in the breast care space where some of the risk prediction models that were developed in the past worked well for Caucasian women, but not for other women, which is completely unacceptable, right? So moving forward, and even today, there is huge focus on making sure that everything that gets developed by medical societies, by clinical institutions, or by companies like us performs very well across all the different type of patients and regions. Patients becoming more active players in the space, and new commercial models. I'm also sure many of the people that were presented before me probably mentioned subscription models. We traditionally were selling in a CapEx, and we still sell mostly CapEx today, but we see the trend going more and more towards a mix between CapEx and OpEx and subscription models and pay-per-use in a changing landscape in front of us. The last thing I would like to share here is expectations. We often see these with our customers. There has been some hype in the recent years, right? And what we see is that the expectations and the real impact tend to be disconnected. So often customers tell us, well, we were expecting this to revolutionize everything by now. And so the reality tends to be a little bit disappointing in the very short term. But what we're seeing and what we do expect, and we already start to see some of this in some areas of breast cancer, is the longer term impact is going to be much bigger even than what most people are expecting in the short term, right? So there is this exponential trend, which means that even many of us will probably not be able to predict how far some of these technologies will evolve in the near future. So with that, I think, Musin, I'm probably at the end of my time. We probably want to have some time for questions. I had a video here, but I think I probably make time for questions rather than showing the video, if that's okay for you, or as you prefer, Musin, how you want to.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. Thank you. How many minutes is the video?
Actually, this one is 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Let's go to the questions and then we leave it for the last part because I saw a question here. Just give me 1 second. Sahab, let's do it this way. Let's give camera and microphone to everybody. Those who have questions, they can just jump in and we can have it more interactive. Unmute option and start video. So if anybody has question, please switch on camera and microphone. Now you have this option. I would like to invite Sahab Aslam from US, if she's with us. Yes.
Mario, a really great presentation. Thank you for sharing. So I had a question regarding, as you mentioned that your AI was doing better than some radiologists, but not as good as some radiologists. And I was wondering, when you guys were picking training data set, did you just pick all the data from all these radiologists, or did you think that if you could go and just get really, really good reads from the radiologists that are good at detecting breast cancer, and just pull that data to train and actually use that to help and augment what they were doing.
Right. So, so you're referring to this slide here, right? Let me just pull it
Yes.
up so that it's here as a reference. So first of all, I wanted to clarify here. On the upper right, there's the reference. So this very concrete article is not done with one of our AIs, right? This is from another third party, a smaller startup company. It's called ScreenPoint. And this data that was used here, this was data for the study itself. This was not data from this radiologist that was used to train the algorithms. Typically, what we do, though, is we don't base our training on just the radiologist reading. We actually are very, very rigorous with the ground truthing, so that we, as much as possible, and for the vast majority, especially the proven cancers, are biopsy confirmed. So whether the radiologist classified one way or the other, at the end of the day, the proven cancers, there's a biopsy, and that's what we use to train the model, right? So then on the other side, if you look at the complete normal cases, we typically take normal cases with at least one more follow-up exam that was maybe 1 or 2 years later that was also considered normal, and then we use the let's say the older one as a confirmed normal case, because there are many cases that were read as normal which turn out to be abnormal or malignant in the next read. So that's kind of how we use it. We don't just base our training on radiologist inputs. We do it on biopsy and then this other approach that I just mentioned. Hopefully
Awesome.
that clarifies a little
Yep.
bit.
It does. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the question and answer. Other questions?
Hi, Mario. This is Bhagmit. Maybe something which is a bit of a follow-up to what Sahab was asking. If your ground truth is based on radiologists, that would be very robust for true positives, right, where the cancer is confirmed. But then there might be some false negatives, meaning there was no biopsy done, but the MMR also might not show from radiologist perspective that there is a tumor, but there actually might be a tumor, right? So do you have any estimates of what might be the false positive in the training data and how that might affect your performance of the models?
Yeah. So that's a great point. So typically, there is up to 2% of false negatives. If you take a general population of normal mammography exams, there can be around 2% of false negatives. Okay, that's roughly speaking rule of thumb. Now, what we do to minimize that as much as possible is what I was mentioning before, that we don't just take that mammogram, we wait in a way. So let's say there's a woman who has 5 mammograms, right? And we have access to the 5 mammograms. We would not use the most recent one. Assuming the most recent one is normal, completely normal, we would take either the prior one or even 2 prior ones, because those are almost certainly true normals, right? True negatives. Because they have the follow-up exam. Now, even then, there may still be, and there are indeed, a very small number of false negatives, which are missed more than once. Yeah, but at this point in time, we don't have a good solution to 100% eliminate those. We believe that with this approach, we probably get rid of 99.8%. And the assumption is that the impact of the remaining true negatives is quite small today, but more work needs to be done in this space still. And to be honest, and the other element is for the accuracy, we see an even bigger impact based on the diversity of the data that we get, because there's very different types of cancers and very different types of lesions. So we're paying even more attention now to getting the right diversity of data, as well as the quality of the annotations, because sometimes there are errors in the annotations. Very easy to have errors. Even if you have the right classification, there could be some errors in region of interest, and some of the other annotations. And we all work to try to minimize as much as possible. It's still not perfect, but it's getting really, really solid today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mario. It was Bagmeet from Amgen with the question. Other questions, please? So you have microphone and camera. You can switch on camera and microphone to ask your questions if there is any question. So it seems there is no question. Still be with me with the video, please.
Moshin, can I ask one more question since nobody else is asking? If you go to your slide 22, I was curious as to what kind of typical years you are talking about when you say long term. Is that 5 years, 10 years, just to get an idea?
Yeah, I mean, when we think here long term, we are thinking 5 to 10 years, right? We, as many of you, we are trying to predict what the future will hold 5 to 10 years from now. It's very hard, right? We do have some overall expectations, but I guess what we're trying to show here is that whatever expectations we have, we believe they will be surpassed in many cases. But I think where we try, and I do show these to some of our customers as well, because some of them tend to be a little bit disappointed in the very short term, right? Like, oh, 2 years ago we met, and today, yes, we see a very high adoption in the US, but it's not as groundbreaking as some of them thought, especially because they see in the media, some of the media hypes the impact, right? And to be honest, sometimes not in the right direction. There were some news out there suggesting that radiologists will be replaced by AI. We don't see that happening. What we do see is that the radiologists that are using AI pervasively and comfortably will probably replace the radiologists who are not using AI in the longer term. Now, some of the things that may happen in the really long term, we could get to the point where the number of mammography exams required goes down substantially, because if we get really, really good at risk prediction and personalizing the screening, then the number of women that will need screening will be reduced, which is good for the overall system, right? Cost savings, good for women, and eventually there may even be possibilities to perhaps even prevent some of these cancers. Right? There are some lifestyle changes, some pharmaceuticals that can reduce the risk of developing breast cancer. So there are some really exciting things that can happen in the long term. Part of the message is if we don't see the world changing drastically in a year or 2 years, that doesn't mean that this is not going to change our world. We do see these changing our world, at least in imaging, and certainly for breast cancer for the next 5 to 10 years.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Other questions? Last minute questions? No. So Mario, it seems there are no questions because participants are with us from morning. I sent a link for the program because tomorrow we are having till after launch presentation, so you can download the agenda. Now that video, I'm still curious, Mario, if you can play it because you have been working on that, and it should be something interesting.
Yeah, and this video actually is trying to paint a vision for how things may look like by 2030, right?
Yes.
This is aspirational, of course, right? There's no product or commercial view on this. Yeah. But let me share. Hopefully the sound will work well. Yeah, let me know otherwise if it doesn't, okay?
Yes.
The world changes, but some things never change. Difficult moments can make time stand still, but love can make a lifetime pass in the blink of an eye. You said I'd understand that someday. And then I blinked. And you were gone. Alarm off.
Good morning, Sophie. How did you sleep?
You tell me, Oz.
447 minutes of confirmed sleep, 34.2% REM. Slept like a baby.
Increase floor temperature.
Increasing floor temperature.
And start me a slow drip, will you? I'm going to take a shower.
Of course, Sophie. I have scheduled for you an appointment at the microclinic. Your full medical history and self-exam results from this morning have been confirmed, received. And your primary care doctor, Liz Childress, has been notified of your appointment.
Sophie, we've been expecting you. I'm Lily, your technologist. Let me show you to your personal pod.
Mom, where do I begin?
Our pods will help put you at ease. They're equipped with sensories.
I remember you telling me how you would sing to me before I was born.
It's going to be okay. Before we do any further testing, we're going to go over the results of your self-exam. But first, let's give you the sensory atmosphere you requested, shall we?
That you were convinced it was why I have such great taste in music.
Step up to the scanner and relax your body. Remain still. And 3, 2, 1. Good. And lift your arm above your head. Remain still. And 3, 2, 1. Good.
How the mere thought of me was all it took for love to grow stronger than anything you'd ever known. The invisible things that consume us. Love. The fear you had dealing with this, and how different it is for me today.
You look great. All right, now you're just gonna lay down for me.
Facing the very same thing that took you from me. You told me once, we can look so deeply into ourselves that we miss what's most important.
So I'm afraid the MRI does show a suspicious lesion in the left breast. Based on appearances and outputs from the artificial intelligence application, probability of malignancy is high. That's the not so good news. The good news is that we caught it early, and when we look at global
I've been
data,
thinking about that lately.
predict an excellent outcome for you.
But I see something now that was harder for you to see back
Talk about
then.
next steps.
Hope. Hope in the world that surrounds me, in the people here to guide me through. You told me it was something I'd find when I needed it most. And I have.
Sophie, you've got a really good team here. As I told you before, I think things are looking really good.
Hi, Mom. How's the news?
What I hoped for.
Look at her.
I just wish you could be here today to see it. And to meet your great-granddaughter. She has your smile.
Everything is set for tomorrow's party, Sophie. GE believes in the power of emerging technologies to advance precision health and transform patient care. The outlook for healthcare has never been brighter.
Was amazing.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for sharing. It was amazing. And there was a question from Abdul Hamid from Silence Therapeutics about the link. If there is somewhere that you can share this link or where they can find it. Is there a link to the video?
I can share, yes, I can share a link to the video. So what I can do, Musin, is I can send it to you through email and you can share it because I don't have it handy right now.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Any other? Yes, definitely. Thanks a lot. Any other questions from participants? Otherwise, we are just going off till tomorrow morning. No question. Okay, so thank you so much, Mario, for this amazing presentation and this beautiful video, which was very inspiring. I wish you a very nice evening. It's a pity we are not in the real world event where we could go to have a nice evening together, but next year for sure. So see you tomorrow again, according to the program. I do believe at 8:50 we are starting. Just to have a short look, I sent you now the link for the agenda. Please open that link, refresh it, and download the latest updated agenda. Tomorrow at 8:50 a.m. we are starting again with the first presentation from WHO, then we have with Amgen and etc. So have a nice evening. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.